Hi, I'm Jon Yeomans. I'm the head of tax at Empowered. It's the 16th of Feb 2023, and this is our monthly tax update on the R&D tax scheme. So there's a lot going on currently. I've been working with the scheme now for around 23 years, way back to when I was a tax inspector, working on some of the very first inland revenue inquiries, as it was back then, into R&D claims. And I don't think I've known a period during that 23 years where there's been so much scrutiny and activity around the R&D scheme. I think we're approaching a period now over the next 18 months where potentially we're going to see some of the most fundamental changes that the scheme has undergone in its history. So there is certainly a lot of change on the horizon. However, we've still got some consultations that are still due to close that could feed into that direction of travel. And obviously, we've got the spring budget next month, where the Chancellor, I'm sure, will talk extensively about the R&D scheme and how he sees that going forwards. So I just wanted to pick up on three things that we've been involved in over the last month. The first of these was on the 27th of January, we had the opportunity to be shown the first screens for HMRC's new G form, their new government form. Now, this is a form that's currently in beta version, but it will be finalized hopefully in April. And it's a new form that will be mandatory for all claims for R&D relief for periods beginning on or after the 1st of April 2023. And it's a form that will prescribe the format that the R&D activities are described, and also the way that the expenditure is provided to HMRC. Now that's currently in, as I say, in beta version, maybe subject to change because of some of these consultations that are actually dealing with some of the content that needs to go in that form. So we will be feeding into those consultations, and we will share with you the final versions when that's available. But it was interesting to see HMRC's thinking in that regard. The second thing I wanted to mention was that HMRC has started a new nudge campaign, if you will, around the R&D scheme last month. So this is a one-to-many scheme. So it's one message that's being issued to many R&D claimants. And we know that 2024, I think, of these letters have been issued to claimants over the last month in two batches on the 23rd and the 30th of Jan. Now, those letters aren't actually compliance checks. You don't necessarily, if you receive one, you don't necessarily have to do anything, but they do provide an opportunity for you to reflect on your R&D claim, so make sure that you're happy that everything is entirely accurate on that claim, and let HMRC know if you think that any adjustment is required. Obviously, if you haven't been shared a copy of the claim report by your R&D advisor, then you should make sure that you've got all the information available to you and that you're happy with everything that has been provided. Now, as I say, these aren't actually formal inquiries. You'll know if it's a one-to-many letter because it will have the reference R&D to MM in the bottom left-hand corner. So the fact that it's got the double M shows that it's a one-to-many campaign letter. So the final thing I wanted to talk about was the publication of the House of Lords report into the inquiry around the R&D scheme that the Lords have been working on over the last few months. So we'll be publishing more details about that on our website. We contributed to the evidence that the Lords considered when publishing that report, where we think that a lot of the recommendations that they've made are very sensible. There's some good recommendations in there. Hopefully that report will feed into the thinking of the Chancellor when he stands up to do his budget next month. And I think people will look back on that report as being quite pivotal in terms of changing the direction of travel around the R&D scheme. When we look back, particularly the current approach that HMRC has to R&D inquiries was talked about in quite a lot of detail during that report, and I think this will potentially be an opportunity for HMRC to reflect on that approach and consider the Lord's recommendations in that regard. So there you go. That's a brief summary of some of the headlines as we see them. As I say, the big event is just under a month from today. On the 15th of March, we will have the spring budget, and we will be reporting back on that in our usual budget debrief webinar, which this year will be on the 23rd of March. So I hope to see you there.